Hey, Matt Stone here in the new Mad Cave, and I wanted to talk about New Year's resolutions because it's that time of year, and I always seem to have something to say about that this time of year. Hold on. Close the door. Because it's something that's very important to me. Even the word resolution sort of hints at something needs to be resolved, or conflict needs to be resolved, is what I think of when we think of New Year's resolutions. And to me, instantly you need to pinpoint what it means to have an inner conflict and examine what that inner conflict really is. And in my experience, the inner conflict comes from you trying to do something that is not really you. It's not something that you value. You just are trying to value it because you experience a lack of that in your life. You see that someone else has more money, they have a nice car, they have all these different things, they have abs, they have whatever they have that you want, and you don't have those things because you're not so motivated by those factors, or else you probably would have obtained them at this point. Maybe you spend more time with your family and friends and you put those first, or maybe you, at work you put work first, and if somebody assigns you a task, you do that task and then you say, well, I'll save my workout, or I will save my going to the farmer's market or whatever for another time. In other words, we have a hierarchy of priorities, and each one of us has a certain hierarchy, and we will put certain things off in order to obtain things that are more important to us in our hierarchy of our priorities. And that's basically what fuels this, I think. And that sometimes things are so low on our priority list that we don't spend any time or attention on those things. And at that point, as that goes on and on and on and on, let's say you neglect your health for a certain number of years, eventually you create a hole in your life where your health is not good, and it's become so bothersome that all of a sudden you have bumped it from the least important thing on your list of priorities to the most important thing on your priority list. But the problem is that that's not really you. It's on the bottom of your priority list for a reason. You don't think it's a good use of your time. You don't like spending your time doing that. It's not something that you naturally gravitate towards, but you're trying to force it upon yourself now. And you're trying to eclipse all the other things that are more important to you with this thing that's not really important to you. And it creates this conflict, and it's very unrealistic to think that you can all of a sudden spend all this time doing something that's been so unimportant to you and suddenly make it the most important thing. It's important to empower those areas of your life and spend a little bit of time and work that in there, but that's not really where a lot of people, I don't think, they have the wisdom to make a New Year's resolution based on that concept. They're getting emotional about it and becoming irrational because they think that they can really go and do that. Instead, it's like, oh, I need to pay more attention to my health this year. Why don't I spend a certain number of minutes per day, 5 minutes, or something really small. But most people go overboard. They think that they're going to do this new diet, they're going to exercise 4 times a week for an hour, they're going to do all these things, and they're going to go from zero attention to all this attention, and it rarely works out. It's unsustainable, and there's just too much conflict. It's not congruent with who that person truly is to make a goal or an objective like that. It just doesn't work. In my experience, the most important thing to do when you make a New Year's resolution or any kind of goal is to make sure it's congruent with who you really are and what you really like and gravitate towards and value. When those match up, it's one of the most gratifying experiences you can imagine. A lot of people experience setting a goal and then they go after it and then they do it for a few weeks and then they peter out. That is what happens when you set a goal that's incongruent with what you really want to do. When you set something that's fully congruent with who you are, you can hardly go to sleep at night because you're enjoying doing this so much. It doesn't take any external motivation to do that. I was just talking to somebody the other day who I know is obsessed with Christmassy things and Christmassy decorations and everything Christmas. And I told him, if you've created a website and you did this and blah, 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 it would be great. Everything would work out. And they said, well, I've done those kind of things before, but I lost my drive and motivation for it after, a couple months. And I was, well, that's because you didn't pick something in an area that you like and that is really high on your, priority list to go after. I said, what if you did it what if you became a Christmas decoration collector, and you started a website or an eBay something, and you started to become a distributor of all these Christmas decorations and gifts? What if you spent your time doing that? Well, you would like it, and as soon as you started making some money doing it, you would want to spend more time doing it, and it would grow on itself, and you'd become almost obsessed because you would be doing what you're enjoying doing and what you're interested in doing all the time, and filling your life with what you really like and making a living doing it. And to me, that's the highest really goal that someone can attain in the modern world, is how do you get paid to do what you love doing, and how do you stop having to do all the things that you don't like to do and that you're not interested in doing? How do you wean yourself off of that and replace that with spending your days and nights and thinking about and doing and participating in and engaging in the area in which you find to be most interesting, inspiring, compelling, and so forth? So when you make a New Year's resolution, make sure that you know yourself and certain things that you can identify what is most important to you, and what is truly a top priority is to first look at what you have most abundantly in your life. If you have a great family, you spend a lot of time, you go to all the soccer games, you go to all the swim meets, you go to all these different things, and you've prioritized that in your life, you know that family is something that you value very highly. That's just an example. But if you're a younger person and maybe you're looking for, reaching out for that which inspires you, it's got to be, you got to focus on what you're really thinking about, what you're putting your energy towards, what you love doing, what takes no external motivation to get you geared up in doing it. For me personally, I went through an experience where I did identify that, and that's what later led to me creating a website and ordering all these books and starting to do health and nutrition research, not just as a layperson, but really just doing it as much as, with as much spare time as I possibly had. And it was the most wonderful way to spend my spare time. I never had so much fun spending my spare time doing anything else, because I wasn't inspired to be doing the things that I was doing in my spare time prior to applying myself towards what I do really enjoy and get off on, which is doing this health and nutrition crap and doing a lot of writing. I mean, I'm definitely a writer, there's no question about it. That's just who I am, and the more time I spend doing it, the better my life is, and that's just the bottom line. So one thing that helped identify that was, what do I have the best memory and retention for? And I thought, well, I can read a novel and it'd be like I didn't even read anything, because my mind would be wandering off and I'd be thinking about all different kinds of things. But I knew that when I had read health books in the past, I would read through them at page turners, 2 or 3 days, and then I would remember everything, almost like an encyclopedia of the details in that book years later. I mean, I could tell you everything about all the different intricacies of the first diet program I read from a book that I read 10 years ago. Because I had an exceptional retention for that type of information, because I was so glued into it. That's a great way to tell. Another thing, what is the last thing you think about before you go to sleep at night, typically? Do you have that kind of recurring thing? Where do you spend your money? If you have spare money, do you spend it at the health food store? Do you buy better food? Do you buy more organic stuff? Do you buy supplements? Do you buy books and exercise? Where do you spend your money? When you have extra money, where does it end up? That's another great way to identify that. Things that you steer conversations towards. So that was something I always steered conversations towards, was talking about health and diet and eating. From the moment I had my first ideas about it, I was always trying to steer conversations towards that with other people, particularly people who I was most comfortable with, like my family members, or my girlfriend at the time, or whoever that was. So those are a few things that can help sort of guide you towards what you might truly be passionate about, because some people say, I'm not really passionate about anything. But think outside the box. I know people whose passion it is to embalm human bodies after they've died, and talk about it for hours. They think it's so fascinating, and they've always known that that's what they wanted to do since they were a teenager. That may sound crazy, and what you may be passionate about may sound crazy to other people. I know people who just love to make people laugh and joke around and goof off, and they think that they're never going to be wealthy or have a good job or like their life. But if they applied that energy towards putting a funny site up and finding funny videos, all of a sudden, who knows, they could have another site like eBombs or Stuff White People Like or The Onion or something like that. So again, it's more about just filling your life with that which you are the most interested in and most inspired by. It's not a difficult thing to do. You don't do it because you want to make money doing it, but often as you do it, you gain expertise, you gain confidence, you realize that there's value in what you do, and that other people are seeking your advice or information or expertise, and all of a sudden you find that you have value. What you're interested in has value to other people. If it's of interest to you and a value to you, it is definitely of value and interest to somebody else, no matter what it is. And in fact, on the internet, if you end up having a website or something like that, the more specific it is, and the more niched out it is, the more easy it is to promote that and to actually make a successful living for yourself, writing about, thinking about, talking about, playing around with, whatever it is that you're interested and inspired by. So anyways, that's a little off topic from health, diet, nutrition, and all that kind of stuff, which I've talked about in years past when it comes to New Year's resolutions. But make sure that whatever you're gearing up for, if you are one of those New Year's resolutions kind of people, I'm certainly not one of those type of people. If you are one of those type of people, make sure that you are doing something that's in harmony with who you are. Do not fight yourself. Do not impose other people's values and their interest upon you. Be you, and be more you in 2012 than you've ever been before. That's the secret to really reaching the highest goals and the highest limits of what you're capable of in your lifetime. I really believe that. So anyways, that's it for me, and happy 2012 everybody. Thanks again, Matt Stone, 180 Degree Health. Bye.